Welcome to Crafted Nest, where every small space becomes a canvas for creativity and every seed tells a story. In today's video, we're taking you inside a real-life edible garden, compact, functional, and rich with purpose. Inspired by the journey of a full-time mother who turned her 2.7 by 3.3 meter yard into a thriving kitchen garden. This episode shows how to layer, repurpose, and grow even in the smallest corners. From wild greens you can't find in supermarkets to clever watering hacks using AC drip. This is not just gardening. It's a way of living more intentionally. If you're ready to transform your space, don't forget to subscribe to Crafted Nest for weekly inspiration. Your next DIY breakthrough might just start here. In a garden no larger than a city bedroom, sunlight is gold, and every inch of it counts. That's where the idea of tiered garden racks came to life. Not from a manual, but from watching how the sun moves across the tiny plot day by day. The lower leaves of the spinach had started to yellow, the chili seedlings stretched long and thin, and the tomatoes, they bent forward in search of light that never reached their roots. So she built up one level at a time. She used what she had: old wooden planks, secondhand plant trays, some leftover bricks for support. The smallest, thirstiest plants were placed in the front row, where the morning sun kissed gently. Behind them, raised a little higher, came the sturdier herbs: basil, lemongrass, mint, and finally, tomatoes and eggplants in the top tier, basking in the full noon glow. It didn't just make sense, it worked like magic. Each plant seemed to glow healthier. No more yellowing leaves, no more tangled shadows. And the best part? Her harvest nearly doubled. It's a lesson in layering. Not just plants, but effort, observation, and love. If you're in a tight space, don't think flat. Think up. Use any structure you have: bamboo, bricks, reuse shelf boards. Watch how your plants reach differently when you give them room to grow vertically under the sun. The garden never got any bigger, but somehow it grew more. Beneath a blanket of banana skins, eggshells, and tea leaves, a quiet miracle begins. It doesn't smell sweet. It doesn't look pretty. But here, in the shaded corner of her tiny garden, something powerful is always happening. Each day, she takes what her kitchen no longer needs: carrot tops, citrus peels, old rice, and feeds it the earth again. The bin isn't fancy, just a wooden crate lined with soil and patience. But it holds a secret: transformation. Where others see waste, she sees tomorrow's harvest. When she lifts the lid, an old burlap sack. The scent is earthy and alive. Worms curl into the corners, shy but busy. In 6 months, the content becomes soft, black compost, warm to the touch, like bread just out of the oven. There's comfort in this ritual, in rinsing a bowl and walking barefoot into the yard, in knowing that nothing is wasted, not even onion skins. The garden thrives not only from sunlight and water, but from what the family leaves behind. And best of all, the plants know. The tomatoes bloom brighter, the spinach thickens, the herbs smell stronger, deeper, more like memory. You don't need a big yard. You don't even need a real bin. A bucket will do. Layer dry leaves with food scraps. Stir when you remember, and let nature do the work. In a world that forgets to slow down, composting reminds her life is always returning, even from what we discard. It started with a drop, then another, slow, quiet, rhythmic, like a heartbeat on concrete. At first, she didn't notice the water dripping from the AC pipe each morning. It pooled gently, vanished into tiles. But one dry week, while watching her basil wilt under the heat, she remembered that drop, so she placed an old basin beneath it. By noon it filled, and from that simple act, just a bowl catching skyless water, her garden learned to breathe again. She rigged it better. A hose, a pump, a storage barrel tucked behind her fence. She added mesh to keep mosquitoes out. Sometimes she stirred an eco-enzyme, just a spoonful, to nourish and protect. Every part felt earned, every drop a treasure. The plants seemed to understand. They stood a little taller after each watering. Lettuce perked up, the chilies flushed red sooner. It wasn't just water, it was attention, saved and shared. There's something beautiful about using what's already there. No extra bill, no heavy lifting, just noticing, just capturing the ordinary and letting it become vital. In a small garden, creativity is irrigation. Whether it's AC condensation, rain runoff, or dew gathered from a tin roof, water doesn't have to come from the faucet. And so each day begins with a walk to the barrel. She opens a spout, fills her can, and waters slowly. Not just the soil, but the roots of something deeper. Intention, gratitude, self-sufficiency. Because when we pay attention, even the smallest drip can nourish something greater. She never had space for garden beds. No raised boxes. No open earth. Just tiles, walls, and the gentle reach of sunlight for a few hours a day. But she had pots, and that was enough. At first, it was one. A small black nursery bag with 2 spinach seeds. Then a chili sprout, a reused tin for turmeric, and a cracked rice bowl for concombre. Before she knew it, the backyard had turned into a mobile feast. Each pot had its story. The faded teapot she rescued from a neighbor's trash now held basil. The dented paint can bore proud arugula leaves. They were never uniform, never perfect, but they grew, and she grew with them. On hot days, she shifted the pots to chase the shade. During the rains, she tucked them under a ledge. It was a quiet dance of care and adaptation, the kind of attention a garden returns in flavor. There's a freedom in pots. They follow the sun. They move with you. They teach you to garden not with space, but with intention. You don't need acres. You need curiosity. Start with what you eat: chilies, lettuce, spring onions. Fill an old bucket. Poke a hole at the bottom. Add soil, sunlight, and hope. Some mornings, she crouches down and whispers to them, not in words, but in presence, in watching new leaves unfold, in noticing the first white flower that promises fruit. These pots didn't just hold plants. They held a new rhythm of life, movable, modest, and entirely her own. In a quiet corner between the kitchen door and the garden wall, a small tower of life rises upward, shelf by shelf, leaf by leaf. It didn't begin as much. Just a single crate set on bricks, filled with mint and basil. But then she added another and then a third. And soon, a vertical herb rack stood proudly like a fragrant library of flavor, each level whispering a different story. Sweet from the basil, sharp from the rosemary, lemony from thyme. The idea came not from abundance, but from necessity. There simply wasn't space to spread out. So she built up, borrowing the wall's height, like borrowed time. She used what she had: bamboo slats, old fruit crates, sturdy zip ties. Each container was different, imperfect, but bursting with potential. And every morning, she visits it like an altar, a touch to test moisture, a pinch for breakfast omelets, a moment of connection. The vertical rack became more than storage. It became a ritual, a reminder that even in tight quarters, something beautiful can rise when rooted in care. You don't need expensive shelving, a ladder, an old bookshelf. Even stacked pots can become your garden in the sky. Choose herbs that love the sun and don't mind being neighbors. Clip often, they'll reward you with more. It's not just a garden, it's a way of thinking. That limits aren't always barriers. Sometimes, They're blueprints for better ideas. And when guests arrive, their noses always notice first. "What is that lovely smell?" they ask, peering at the vertical cascade of green. She smiles, points at the wall, and says softly, "That's dinner," from the stem of yesterday's harvest. Something new begins again. It's a quiet kind of magic. The way a kale plant, once snipped, offers back another gift. Along the base of the stalk, a tiny shoot appears. Pale at first, hesitant, but in the soft care of her hands, it becomes a promise of more. She never bought fancy seeds. Not for these. Her kale grew old, and rather than throw it out, she watched, waited, and then gently, she broke away the small offshoots and tucked them into reused pots, one that once cooked rice, stored sugar, or carried soup to neighbors. She filled each container with loose soil, composted kitchen scraps and quiet hope, watered them sparingly, gave them light, but not heat, and the shoots responded, slowly but surely, turning toward the sun with humble green leaves. Each pot held its own rhythm. One grew faster, another took its time, but she never rushed them. Gardening, after all, isn't about speed. It's about patience made visible. You don't need to start from seed. Sometimes, the best beginnings are the ones that grow from something you thought was ending. Watch your older kale plants. Look for the tiny shoots near the base. Gently break them off when they have 2 or more small leaves. Place them in a pot with good drainage. Keep the soil moist but never soaked. And wait, because the joy of gardening isn't just in growing food. It's in watching life say yes, even when you thought it had finished speaking. These shoots are more than vegetables. They're quiet reminders nothing is wasted and everything can start again. In the quietest corner of her garden, far from the orderly rows of lettuce and chili, grows a wild and fragrant chaos. Here, the leaves don't march in neat lines. They sprawl, reach, and curl. Tempuyan with its thin, jagged outline, Cintron with its tender fuzz, Boluntas with its familiar scent of home. These aren't designer plants. They're the kind that grow in forgotten fields and roadside soil, now lovingly gathered in reused buckets and bowls. She didn't plant them all. Some arrived with the wind, others tucked into composted soil. But once she tasted their resilience, how Tempuyan cooled the body, how Boluntas brought comfort to a bitter sambal, she began to care for them as treasures. There's a different kind of beauty here, less curated, more intuitive. These wild greens don't need pampering. They thrive on neglect, surprise you with sudden growth after rain, and gift flavors that feel ancestral. She harvests just a few leaves each day, enough for lalapan or a handful for soup. No need to store. Nature keeps them fresh until needed. If you have even one shaded patch, start your own wild leaf garden. Use soil rich with compost. Let a few corners grow loose, and observe what appears. You may find something familiar you forgot you loved, or discover a new favorite that once grew by your grandmother's kitchen door. This garden is not just a collection of leaves. It's a living memory of flavors passed down, of childhood snacks, of food that knows the land better than any seed packet ever could. In the wild, there is wisdom, and in this leafy corner, she learned something new with every harvest. It began with orange peels and a question: can this become something more? She had seen the videos. Fruit scraps turned into natural cleaners, pest deterrents, even plant food. So she tried it. Citrus rinds, old flowers, a dash of brown sugar, and patience. Stored in a plastic bottle and tucked away like a quiet experiment. Weeks passed. The liquid darkened, rich and sharp in scent, a home brew of life and decay. Now, that golden brown liquid is part of her routine. mixed with water and loaded into a DIY sprayer, just an old dish soap bottle fitted with a simple nozzle. She moves down the garden rows each morning, misting kale, brushing over eggplant leaves, and watching the shine return. It doesn't just feed the plants, it protects them. Fewer aphids, stronger scent in the herbs, a kind of vitality she never found in store-bought solutions. She reuses everything. The bottles, the tubing, even the holders she made from twisted coat hangers. Her sprayer setup may look improvised, but it works better than anything she's purchased. And there's joy in knowing that what once went to waste, peels, petals, leftovers, is now an elixir for life, a slow magic that cycles from kitchen to soil and back again. If you want to try, start with a jar. Add fruit scraps, a spoon of sugar, and clean water. Let it ferment. Strain. Then spray. And watch how even your garden breathes a little easier. In every drop, there's proof. Nature wastes nothing. And with a little patience, neither do you. The garden doesn't end at the soil. It flows gently into her kitchen, over a humble wooden table placed near the fence. This is where the real ritual begins. Morning harvest in one hand, woven basket in the other. She walks a few steps from the beds to the old table. Its surface holds more than produce. It holds memory, rhythm, gratitude. She lays out her greens, tempuyung, citron, a bundle of basil, and rinses them with care. Each leaf is inspected, not like a task, but like a conversation. Some are too tender for today. Some just right for sambal, for salad, for soup. Sometimes her child joins, helping separate the sprigs. Sometimes she works alone, in silence except for a bird song and the splash of water in the bowl. The table was once meant for something else, a writing desk, a hallway shelf. But here, in this spot beside the plants that feed her, it found its true purpose. You don't need a fancy outdoor kitchen. A flat surface and a bowl will do. Reuse old tables. Create a prep corner where soil still clings to roots and your fingers smell of lemongrass. This is a garden's second voice, not just in growth, but in the quiet preparation of its gifts. It slows the pace of the day, reminds you that nourishment begins long before the stove. And when the sun shifts low and the breeze softens, she gathers her bowls, brushes the table clean, and carries the garden indoors, ready for whatever the kitchen dreams next. Not all gardens need soil that runs deep or sun that shines bold. Sometimes all it takes is a tray, a window, and a quiet morning. In the soft corner of her apartment kitchen, where the sun only whispers through mesh curtains, she began her journey with microgreens. A spoonful of seeds scattered like dreams onto a moist paper towel, covered for a day, then uncovered, then misted gently, like waking something fragile. By day 3, they rose, a carpet of green no taller than a breath. Tiny, eager, alive. She didn't need a backyard, didn't need raised beds or compost bins, just trays. Some reused baking tins, others old tofu containers. She arranged them on a shelf near the light and watched her garden grow not outward, but upward. Radish greens that bit with spice, sunflower shoots that crunched like fresh snow, mustard sprouts that brought heat to her salad. Each tray gave flavor that felt 10 times its size. The beauty of microgreens lies in their modesty. No digging, no dirt under fingernails, just patience, mist, and light. Perfect for apartment dwellers, busy parents, anyone with a craving for something living nearby. If your home is shaded or small, begin here. Soak seeds overnight. Drain. Spread them thin in shallow trays lined with moist cloth or paper. Mist twice daily. Watch. In a week, you'll harvest with scissors and joy. This garden fits in a drawer. It asks little and gives back much. And in the quiet act of snipping greens for breakfast, she finds herself part of something rooted, even if it never touches the earth. She once stared at that blank garden wall like a puzzle, too narrow for pots, too shaded for sun-loving herbs. But she couldn't let it go to waste. So she looked again, not at the wall, but at what she threw away. Bottles. So many of them. Clear, curved, sturdy. What if they held more than water? She cut, washed, and wired them. Each bottle became a cradle for soil, a nest for seeds, a home for roots. She lined them up like notes on a page, rows and rows of future flavor. Basil in one, scallions in another, and arugula just below. Now the wall sings. In the mornings, she waters from the top. Gravity helps the rest. The soil stays moist. The bottles drain well. The leaves peek out like curious eyes. And the space that once held nothing now offers a living menu at eye level. She didn't buy anything. She only redirected what was already there. This edible bottle wall isn't just practical, it's poetic. It turns plastic into purpose. It transforms a vertical into harvest. It gives a second life to waste and a new layer of beauty to plain cement. You can do it, too. Find bottles, same size or mismatched. Cut open a window, poke drainage holes, and fill with good soil. String them to wire mesh or wood, then plant what you love to eat. This wall became her pride, her proof that you don't need land to grow food, just a little sunlight, a few bottles, and a belief that even waste can grow green again. In the unused edge of her garden, where sunlight lingers and corners gather dust, she built something that curled like a sleeping fern. The herbal spiral didn't begin with plans, just a need to grow more in less space. She gathered pots of different sizes, a few old bricks and leftover gravel. Slowly, patiently, she stacked them, each layer turning slightly, rising like a cinnamon roll pressed into the earth. The base she filled with lemongrass, whose roots liked the moisture. The next tier held basil and dill, catching sunlight but not drowning. The higher curves welcomed mint, parsley, oregano. Each level had its own little climate, wetter below, drier above, warm on one side, cool on the other. It looked whimsical, almost like a fairy garden. But it worked. The spiral shape helped rainwater trickle inward. The herbs grew lush and happy, each in its chosen spot. Now every morning, she circles it like a dance, plucking a bit of this, sniffing that, brushing leaves aside as if greeting old friends. She never expected so much flavor to live in 1 square meter. This design is for anyone with a tight space and a love of herbs. You don't need exact materials. Use stones, pots, wood, whatever you have. Think in curves. Let the shape carry the water and the rhythm. A spiral reminds her that gardens aren't always linear. Growth can twist, lean, return to itself, and still flourish. What she built in a corner became the heart of her harvest, a turning tower of scent and taste, alive with motion and memory. Some flavors don't come from cookbooks. They come from memory, from language, from places the map doesn't name, but the tongue remembers. She calls it her Lalapan station, A gathering of leaves not found in supermarket aisles, but whispered in family kitchens. Dawn Mengkudu, with its bitterness like a lesson. Baluntas, soft and fragrant. Sintrong, Murbii, Tembuyung, each with a story of place, of ancestors, of taste that lives in the blood. This isn't a decorative patch. It's deeply practical. These leaves are harvested daily, rinsed at the old garden table, and laid beside sambal, rice, and fried eggplant. They cool the body, aid digestion, ground the meal in something real. She grows them in whatever she finds, buckets, bowls. A crate once used to hold oranges. They need little, good compost, partial sun, regular rain. Many are wild, eager, and forgiving. That's their gift. Some neighbors pass by and ask, "What's that one called again?" She smiles. Sometimes even she forgets the English name. But the leaves, they know her touch, and her tongue knows their taste. You can make your own culinary leaf station, no matter where you are. Start with what you grew up with, or what your grandmother once picked from behind the house. Ask around. Look local. Gather roots not just in soil, but in culture. Because growing these leaves is more than a garden project. It's a reclaiming of food, of heritage, of pride in the simple things. And when she serves a plate with 5 kinds of greens, bitter, soft, sweet, spicy, strong, it's not just lunch, it's legacy. Sometimes the answer is already beneath your feet. She didn't buy garden boxes. She didn't need lumber or nails. Instead, she looked around and found the old bricks near the drain, the stack of clay pots left by her grandmother, the plank once used to dry laundry. With these, she built her raised garden, modest in height, but full of dignity. Each pot a small world of soil and seed, lifted from the hard ground where puddles gathered and pests prowled. The elevation made watering easier. No more crouching until her knees ached. And the drainage? Natural. The clay breathed. The roots stayed healthy. The plants grew strong. It wasn't polished. The bricks were chipped. The pots didn't match. But every imperfection made it more hers. And the harvest didn't mind. Tomatoes flushed red. Chilies perked up. Spinach unfurled with soft certainty. Neighbors asked if she followed a plan. She said no. She followed her needs. Her back needed less bending. Her soil needed less rot. Her garden needed less bending. You can start the same way. Use what you have. Clay pots drain well, breathe deep, and last for decades. Raise them with bricks, crates, pallets. Whatever lifts them out of water's reach and into the sun. It's not about style. It's about sense. And in this quiet row of raised clay pots, she found not just vegetables, but grace. Grace in reuse. Grace in effort. Grace in the way a simple pot, warmed by morning light, can hold more than roots. It can hold the hope of a better meal. In the narrow stretch behind her house, where concrete once claimed everything, she carved out a farm of her own. Not vast, not wild, just 3 rows wide, framed in handmade cement, but full of ambition. She poured the borders herself, mixing sand and cement in an old basin. No molds, just patience and a worn trowel. Slowly, she marked each line, building borders not just to contain, but to guide. Inside the borders, order. 1 row for greens that rise quickly, another for roots that dig deep, and the last for climbers, bold and reaching. The cement kept the soil from spilling, the weeds from creeping, and when the rain came, it didn't wash her efforts away. This wasn't a garden. It was a declaration that farming doesn't need fields. That structure can grow from scrap. That even small spaces with little intention can look and feel abundant. Children play near the rows, learning not from books but from touch. They see the tiny seeds they help sow push through, become food, become part of dinner. That's the cycle the cement keeps steady. You don't need power tools to make a border. Reuse bricks, broken tiles, or handmade cement casts can all shape a bed. What matters is the line you draw, not to limit, but to focus your care. And in these miniature farm rows, she found rhythm. Weed, water, harvest, rest. Again and again. The cement may be cold, but within it grows something deeply warm. Life held gently in place, where every leaf rises knowing belongs. In a quiet corner near her compost bin, she brews a tea unlike any other, not for sipping, but for feeding. It starts with a bag, not silk or cotton, but an old mesh produce sack, the kind once used for garlic. Into it she tosses yesterday's coffee grounds, crumbling eggshells, a soft banana peel. No measurements, just instinct. A handful of what the garden gave, now returned. She ties it shut, dangles it into a bucket of rainwater, and lets it steep. 1 day, 2, long enough for the water to darken, to carry scent and life and unseen nourishment. This is compost tea, a slow potion for tired leaves and hungry roots. It doesn't look fancy. It smells of soil and morning and the patient work of decay. But when she pours it, diluted, gentle, over her kale, her lemongrass, her chilies, they respond. They brighten. They lift. It's not about perfection. The bag doesn't match the bucket. The stick she balances it on is just an old curtain rod. But that's the beauty. Each part repurposed, functional, meaningful. You don't need equipment to make this. Just a mesh bag, a container, and organic waste. Let it soak. Stir it if you remember. Strain if you want. Then pour at the base of your plants and watch how they glow again. This tea speaks to something deep about giving back, about cycles, about finding power in the overlooked. She doesn't talk much when she makes it, just listens to the water shift and the leaves rustle. The garden understands. It drinks and it grows. In a space barely wide enough for a chair, she created a salad bar that danced with morning light. Her balcony had no soil, no garden beds, just vertical walls and possibility. So she reached upward, not outward, and let the greens grow where pictures might have hung. A wooden pallet became the frame. Recycled trays, tins, and containers lined its face. And into each, she tucked baby spinach, crisp romaine, tangy arugula. No heavy tools, no deep digging, just a bit of compost, a sprinkle of seeds, and patience measured in watering cans. Each day, she steps outside with scissors and a bowl. The air is soft, the leaves are tender. She clips only what she'll eat, enough for lunch, sometimes dinner. A salad born from sunlight and second chances. Neighbors walk by below and look up. Is that lettuce? They ask. She nods. And it's fresher than anything you'll find wrapped in plastic. You can do it too. Use a shoe rack, a bamboo ladder, a trellis. Hang it securely where the sun peeks in for a few hours. Choose greens that grow fast and shallow. Water gently. harvest often. It's not just about food. It's about knowing you can make something lush where there once was blank wall. It's about stepping out with scissors and returning with something living. And on days when she's tired, when the city feels too loud, this little vertical oasis offers its quiet, leaf by leaf, bite by bite. Every beginning needs a place to rest, a halfway point between where a plant was and where it's going. For her, that place was a nursery corner, not made of glass or steel, but old crates, mesh cloth, and quiet hope. Here, the cuttings rested, mint from her neighbor's yard, kale from her own fading stalk, lemongrass rescued from a market trimmings. They stood in mismatched jars, bottles, yogurt cups, each with a name, each waiting. Above them, a curtain of shade stretched across bamboo poles, softening the sun but never stealing it. The air stayed warm but not harsh. The light filtered like morning through lace. This wasn't about growing fast. It was about allowing rest. Roots need time, and time needs tenderness. She misted them gently, not too much. Checked the stems for change. Celebrated when the first white threads of new roots curled in the water. It felt like a secret shared between her and the green. You can build this too. Find a quiet corner, not too dark, not too bright. Use recycled containers. Fill with water or soft potting mix. Give your cuttings room and cover them with thin cloth or mesh to buffer the sun. Protect, but don't smother. Propagation is the art of second chances. A stem removed becomes a whole plant again. Life doesn't end at a cut. It begins anew with care. And in this shaded nursery, she didn't just grow plants. She grew patience. She grew belief. Because watching roots form in silence is a reminder. Even when nothing seems to be happening, the most important things often are. In her garden, waste was never welcome. Every part of the plant, from the root to the leaf, had its place, its purpose, its flavor. This patch wasn't designed for beauty, though it had plenty of that in its mess of greens and sunlit edges. It was made for nourishment. Every row told a story of resourcefulness. Turmeric planted not just for its glowing root, but for the fragrant leaf that wrapped her rice. Chili bushes offered heat in their fruit and gentle bitterness in their leaves. Even cassava, if grown carefully, could gift both root and canopy. She planted with intention. If I grow it, she said, I'll use all of it. Her basket was always mixed, roots still damp with earth, stalks bundled like firewood, leafy tops freshly misted from the morning air. There's power in that kind of growing, not just in feeding a family, but in the philosophy it teaches, that nothing should be overlooked, that every part of something, plant or person, can carry value. You can start small. Choose a few plants with double gifts. Sweet potato for greens and tuber, chili for spice and leaf, lemongrass for scent and stalk. Learn how to use them all. Stir-fry the leaves, steam with the stalks, dry the skins for tea. This patch became her pride. Not the biggest, not the rarest, but the most complete. And when she cooked dinner, it wasn't just a meal. It was a tribute to the whole plant, to the whole process, to the whole heart it takes to garden this way. Water, when it falls slowly, speaks a different language, one of patience, conservation, and quiet rhythm. She learned this not from books, but from watching her garden during the dry season. The hose was too forceful. The watering can too tiring. So she built upward, a bucket on a shelf, some thin tubing and the gentle pull of gravity. From the top, Water moved like thought, silent, steady, dripping into each pot, each row, each need. It wasn't perfect at first. The flow was uneven. One too clogged, another dripped too fast. But she adjusted. She listened. She watched how the soil drank, how the leaves responded. Over time, her system became a pulse that matched the garden's breath. She used old containers, water jugs, cooking oil bottles, even rice buckets. No fancy parts, just recycled things given a second story. The tubes came from aquarium kits and discarded irrigation scraps. Each morning, she refilled the reservoir with rainwater or cooled AC drip. In the evening, she checked for flow. The system taught her to trust timing, to surrender control, to let water do what it does best when left to its own pace. You can build it, too. Raise a bucket, pierce a hole, insert a tube. Let the height create pressure. Aim each outlet toward the roots. Keep the containers clean. Let gravity speak for you. Because when water arrives slowly, something magical happens. The plants take just what they need. No more, no less. And as she sips her tea beneath the vines, listening to the faint tick of drips on dry soil, she feels it. That soft alignment between effort and ease, where even watering becomes an act of grace.